I want to start this deep dive with a number, 21,905,000 euros.
Which, depending on the exchange rate at that specific moment we were talking about, hovered right around 31 million US dollars.
$31 million, yeah. And usually when we talk about that kind of money, in the art world anyway, we are visualizing a massive canvas, right?
Like a Rothko or something.
Exactly, like a Rothko or a Picasso, something that completely dominates a gallery wall. But today we are talking about a chair.
And not a throne either.
No.
Not some diamond-encrusted golden seat built for a monarch. It is just a small brown leather armchair.
Just a chair. It is the dragon's armchair, or the fauteuil aux dragons, if we are being official.
Designed by the Irish architect and designer Eileen Gray.
Yes, Eileen Gray. And the fact that a piece of furniture, something you literally just sit on, shattered every single record for decorative art, is exactly what we need to unpack today.
Because it really is not just about inflation or, rich people throwing money around for the sake of it.
Right. It is deeper than that.
Much deeper. It is a perfect storm. It is this incredible story where craftsmanship and provenance and celebrity history and, honestly, just raw market psychology all collided.
Collided at Christie's in Paris back in 2009.
Exactly.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We have been going through all the sources, the auction records, the biographies, the catalog descriptions.
All of it.
And we are going to trace how this one specific object went from a humid bathroom in 1919.
Which is a crazy story on its own.
So crazy. From a bathroom to a $2,700 purchase in the 1970s, and finally to that absolute record-breaking $31 million moment.
It really is the ultimate case study in value. It makes you ask what actually makes an object priceless.
Right.
Is it the hand of the maker or is it the hand of the owner?
Or both. So let's just start with the object itself, because I think if you hear someone say $31 million chair, you automatically picture something incredibly garish.
Oh, for sure. Gold leaf everywhere.
Right, exactly. But looking at the images from the Christie's catalog, it is surprisingly contained.
Contained is a really good word for it. It is actually quite small.
Really?
Yeah, the dimensions are only 61 by 91 centimeters.
Oh, wow.
So it is petite. It was never meant to be this massive lounge chair you sink into to watch football. It is very much a sculptural object.
So describe it for us. For anyone listening who hasn't seen the photos, what are we actually looking at here?
Well, visually it is striking, but it is quite dark. It is an upholstered wooded armchair covered in this rich brown leather.
Okay.
But the frame is really where the genius lies. It is sculpted wood, and it is lacquered in this brownish orange and silver finish. Christie's actually described the form of the chair as unfurling petals.
Unfurling petals. That is a very organic description for a piece of furniture.
It is, and it completely fits. The armrests are not just straight, rigid lines. They are these serpentine, intertwined bodies that literally flow around the person sitting in it.
Which is where the name comes from, right? The dragon's armchair.
Exactly, hence the name.
But looking closely at the relief work on those armrests, and the notes actually mention this ambiguity, aren't they definitely dragon?
Well, that is up for debate. And honestly, I think that adds to the mystique of the whole piece.
How so?
So the iconography is definitely likened to traditional Chinese art. You have these stylized clouds carved in low relief and the general dragon motif.
Right, the scales and everything.
Yeah, but the way the armrests flow and bulge. Some critics and art historians have actually compared them to a sea monster instead.
A sea monster. That feels a little bit more dangerous, doesn't it?
It really does. It gives the chair this intense sense of movement, like the chair is alive and sort of wrapping around you.
And that is slightly terrifying, but also amazing.
And the eyes of these creatures, whether they're dragons or sea monsters, they're made of black lacquer set on a white ground.
So they stand out.
Oh, they really pop against the darker wood of the frame. It is absolutely not passive furniture. It demands your attention.
And the auction catalog called it surprising, imaginative, subtly sculpted and crafted.
Yes.
That word subtly is doing a lot of heavy lifting for a $30 million item. You would think for that price it would be screaming its value at you.
Well, you have to remember that true luxury in that era, and specifically in Eileen Gray's work, was very often about the details you had to be standing right next to the piece to even see.
Ah, okay.
Jennifer Goff, who is the curator at the National Museum of Ireland, she actually calls the piece completely unique and rather eccentric.
Eccentric is an interesting choice of words. It suggests it doesn't quite fit the standard Art Deco mold that was popular at the time.
It really doesn't. And that is largely because of when and how it was made. This was absolutely not a factory production piece,
Not mass-produced at all.
and not even close.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the actual process of making it. And I
Yeah.
think this is the most critical part of understanding the intrinsic value here, way before we even start talking about the market value.
Right, because the timeline is just shocking. She didn't just sketch this out on a napkin and send it off to a workshop to be built.
No. Eileen Gray spent 2 full years working on this one single chair,
2 years.
from 1917 to 1919.
That is literally the middle of World War I and its immediate aftermath.
Exactly. She is moving between London and Paris during these incredibly tumultuous historical years, and she is just obsessively working on this one piece of furniture.
And when we say working, we mean the physical application of the lacquer, right?
Yes, the physical, grueling labor of it.
Because I think people hear the word lacquer and they automatically think of a shiny spray paint you can grab at a hardware store.
Oh, totally.
But that is not what we were talking about here.
Far from it. Traditional Asian lacquer is a natural polymer derived from tree sap.
Tree sap.
Yeah, and it is highly toxic before it cures. It can cause terrible skin rashes that are very similar to severe poison ivy.
Oh, wow.
And on top of being toxic, it is incredibly temperamental to work with. It requires layer upon layer upon layer.
How many layers are we talking about?
Sometimes dozens. You have to apply a paper thin coat,
Mm-hmm.
let it cure, polish it completely down, apply another thin coat. It takes weeks, sometimes months, just to build up that deep, lustrous finish.
And the curing conditions are super specific. This is where that famous anecdote comes in.
Yes, my favorite part of the story. So lacquer doesn't dry by evaporation like normal paint. It actually sets through a chemical process that strictly requires high humidity.
Okay.
So where did Eileen Gray, this aristocratic, elegant designer, find a highly humid environment in her early 20th century home?
Her bathroom.
Her bathroom. The sources literally describe her checking the piece in the steam of her bathroom, polishing it by hand for days on end.
That image is just fantastic. It completely strips away all the glamour we associate with high-end design.
It really does.
It is not some pristine, sunlit studio. It is a working artist utilizing her own domestic space just to achieve a chemical reaction on a piece of wood.
And it creates this incredible intimacy with the object. When you buy this chair, you are not just buying a cool design. You're buying the literal years of her life spent inhaling those fumes in a damp bathroom, polishing that surface, obsessing over the exact curve of the dragon's body.
Or the sea monster's body.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
it represents a very specific era of her career, too, doesn't it? Because she eventually became super famous for very distinct modernist architecture.
Yes, the glass and steel stuff.
Oh, right, like the famous E2027 house. But this chair feels so much older, so much more traditional.
It is really the pinnacle of her first phase. It is highly expressive, very symbolic, almost mystical in a way. Christie's catalog notes that it distills the magical, intimately expressive phase of her work before she shifted toward the functional industrial modernism she is mostly known for today.
So it is a super rare artifact of early Gray.
Exactly. A transitional masterpiece.
Okay, so we have this rare, labor-intensive masterpiece created in a steamy bathroom. But a masterpiece sitting in a bathroom doesn't magically get a $31 million price tag slapped on it.
No, it definitely does not.
We need to talk about the journey this chair took, the provenance.
Provenance is the golden ticket in the art world. It is all about who bought it and where was it seen by other wealthy people.
Right.
And the very first owner of the Dragon's Armchair was Suzanne Talbot.
She was a patron of Gray's, right?
A very, very significant one. Her real name was Madame Mathieu Levy, but she went by Suzanne Talbot. She was a milliner, so a high-end hat maker, and just a major, major figure in Paris fashion at the time.
Okay, so she had money and taste.
Tons of both. She actually commissioned Eileen Gray to design the entire interior of her apartment, which became known as the famous Glass Salon.
The Glass Salon, even the name just sounds incredibly expensive.
It was a total landmark of interior design in Paris. So the chair starts its life at the very, very top of the social ladder. It is a bespoke commission. It's placed in a famous avant-garde salon. It gets photographed for magazines.
It has a serious pedigree from day one.
Exactly.
But then, as always happens with fashion, tastes change, Art Deco falls out of favor, and the chair just sort of disappears from the public consciousness for a while.
It goes dormant, basically, until 1971. This is the massive pivot point in the story.
1971. So we are deep in the era of psychedelia, plastic furniture, the whole space-age aesthetic.
Shag carpets everywhere.
Exactly. Art Deco at that point is basically considered grandma's furniture by a lot of the mainstream culture.
It was totally out of fashion. And that is exactly when the Parisian art dealer Cheska Valois comes into the picture.
Just go.
Yes, she finds and acquires the chair. And the price she paid is just fascinating given what we know happens later.
The auction records say she paid $2,700.
$2,700.
I mean, I know inflation is a real thing, but even adjusted for inflation, that is roughly the price of a decent used Honda Civic today.
Right.
It is absolutely not the price of a museum-grade masterpiece.
It just shows that the market had not caught up to the history yet. The scholarship on Eileen Gray simply wasn't what it is today. To the average eye walking past a shop in 1971, it was just this weird, heavy old brown chair.
But Cheska Valoy clearly saw something else.
She had the eye.
And more importantly, she knew exactly who else would see something in it.
Oh, yes. She held on to it for a bit and then sold it 2 years later, 1973. And the buyer was Yves Saint Laurent.
Oh. Wow. Okay, this is where the rocket fuel gets added to the fire.
It cannot be overstated how big a deal this is.
Yeah.
Yves Saint Laurent and his partner Pierre Berger were not just rich guys buying expensive things.
Right.
They were tastemakers of the highest possible order. Their private art collection was legendary even while they were still actively building it.
It is that classic halo effect. If Yves Saint Laurent, the king of fashion, decides to put this weird brown chair in his living room, it is no longer just an old Eileen Gray chair.
No.
It becomes the chair that YSL personally chose.
Precisely. His ownership actively validates the object to the rest of the world. It tells high society this object is historically significant. And for nearly 40 years, that chair just sat in their private collection.
Wow.
It was part of the daily backdrop of their lives. It absorbed all the glamour and the mythos of that household.
Okay, so let us fast forward. It is February 2009. Yves Saint Laurent has sadly passed away. Pierre Berger decides he is selling the collection.
The whole thing.
And it gets dubbed the sale of the century by the press.
Which is a bold claim, but it actually lived up to it. And you have to remember the global context here. This is February 2009.
Oh, right. The global financial markets had literally just melted down in late 2008. The entire world was plunging into a severe recession.
Lehman Brothers had collapsed. People were losing their homes. You would naturally think this is the absolute worst possible time in history to sell luxury decorative assets.
People were panicking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the ultra-high-end art world, sometimes extreme economic uncertainty actually drives people toward tangible physical assets.
Oh, that makes sense. Like gold.
Exactly like gold. High-quality, proven art becomes a safe harbor for billionaires to park their wealth. And the hype around this specific YSL sale was just deafening.
Where was it held?
It was held at the Grand Palais in Paris.
Dang.
It wasn't just a standard auction in a quiet room. It was a massive cultural event.
So the dragon's chair comes up for auction. Now, the experts at Christie's are not flying blind here. They know it has the YSL provenance. They know it is an Eileen Gray original. What was their official pre-sale estimate?
They estimated it would sell for between 2 and 3 million euros.
Which is a very solid estimate. I mean, that is a lot of money for a chair. It clearly acknowledges that it is a masterpiece.
It definitely acknowledges Gray's importance and the YSL history. Yes, 2 to 3 million is huge. But once the actual bidding opened, that estimate became completely irrelevant almost immediately.
So describe the room for us. What actually happens in an auction room when a lot like this just takes off?
Well, it basically becomes a duel. The auctioneer starts the bidding, and the numbers just start aggressively ticking up. 4 million, 5 million, 10 million.
My God.
At that point, the room usually goes dead silent, but there is this thick electric tension in the air. People are whispering on cell phones.
Yeah.
You have to realize 10 million would have already been a massive world record.
But it didn't stop there. It kept going.
It just kept climbing. 15 million, 20 million.
And finally, the hammer falls. 21,905,000 euros.
Shattering the previous world record for 20th century decorative art by $22 million.
That is insane.
It didn't just break the record, it completely obliterated it.
That is the literal definition of an outlier in the market. So who bought it? Who actually has that kind of liquid capital and that kind of intense desire for a brown armchair?
This is honestly the greatest twist of the whole story. The winning buyer was Cheska Valoy.
Wait, the exact same art dealer who bought it for $2,700 back in 1971.
The very same woman.
You are kidding.
No. Now, she was bidding on behalf of an unknown third-party client. There were a lot of rumors flying around that it was the billionaire Kravis family, though that it's been heavily debated and denied. But physically, she was the one sitting in the room holding the paddle.
Just imagine that feeling. She physically held this exact object in her hands in the 70s, bought it for the price of a used car, sold it to Yves Saint Laurent, watched it become this total legend, and then stood in the Grand Palais 40 years later to buy it back at a 10,000-fold markup.
It closes the historical circle so perfectly. And her comment to the press right after the sale is really the key to understanding this entire deep dive.
What did she say?
When reporters swarmed her and asked about the insane price, because the whole world was asking why this amount of money, she simply called it the price of desire.
The price of desire, that honestly feels more like a philosophy than economics.
It totally is. It essentially admits that at this stratospheric level of wealth, we are no longer talking about the cost of materials. We're not talking about labor hours. We aren't even really talking about rational financial investment anymore.
Right.
We are talking about the completely irrational, overwhelming human need to possess something utterly unique.
It is the intersection of two very distinct types of desire, really. You have the original desire of Eileen Gray obsessing over this wood in her steamy bathroom for 2 years, pouring her actual soul and lungs into it.
Yes.
And then you have the desire of the billionaire collector who desperately wants to own a piece of that artistic soul, plus the glamorous soul of Yves Saint Laurent.
Exactly. You are literally buying the narrative. You are buying the story of the 20th century. From the obscure artisan working in a bathroom, to the fabulous fashion icon in his Paris salon, to the sheer adrenaline of the auction house world record. The physical chair is really just the vessel for all that intangible history.
It really makes you wonder about the core distinction between furniture and art. I mean, structurally, you can sit in it. It functions perfectly well as a chair.
Sure.
But at $31 million, you wouldn't dare actually sit in it right.
Well, that is the grand irony of it all. Eileen Gray fully intended for her pieces to be used. She strongly believed in design that served daily life.
Right.
But the global art market has essentially transformed her functional chair into a holy relic. It has completely transcended its original physical function to become pure stored capital and pure social status.
It is a little bit tragic in a way. It is simply too expensive to ever just be a chair again.
That is often the fate of the masterpiece. It gains historical immortality, but it loses its everyday purpose.
So let us wrap this up. We have gone from the toxic humidity of 1919 to the financial frenzy of 2009. We have seen how $2,700 magically turned into $31 million.
And we have seen that financial value is highly subjective, it is fluid, and it is almost entirely dependent on the stories we as a society attach to objects.
Which leaves me with a final thought I want to throw out to you listening right now. We look at this Eileen Gray chair today, and it seems incredibly obvious that it is a masterpiece.
Of course.
It has the rich history, it has the unique look, it has the massive price tag to prove it. But back in 1971, it was just sitting there. It was just available.
It was completely overlooked. It was essentially waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to its brilliance.
So as you go about your week, just look around. Look at the seemingly mundane objects in your own life or the weird things sitting in the dusty antique shops you walk past.
Yeah.
We always tend to think history is finished right.
Right, that all the great stuff is already in museums.
Exactly, that all the masterpieces have been identified and locked away behind glass.
But history is actively being written right now.
Precisely. If a small brown eccentric chair can suddenly hold the price of desire simply because of whose hands created it and whose living room it sat in, what misunderstood, eccentric, overlooked object exists out there right now, that will be the $30 million hammer drop of the year 2109.
That really is the question.
Right.
What priceless artifacts are we casually sitting on right now?
I am definitely going to go check the manufacturing stamp on my office chair as soon as we finish, just in case. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 28 million euro chair.
An absolute pleasure to explore it.
Catch you on the next deep dive.